Do you have parents at your youth baseball games who are just completely out of control and they don't know how to control themselves in the stands, and they yell out to the field at the umpires and the other players and the teams, and they just raise the stress energy all around the game? Unfortunately, this is an all too common problem in youth sports. And as a coach, it's really hard and kind of awkward sometimes to kind of control those parents. It's not an easy thing to do. But in today's Bullpen Bulletin, I'm giving you 3 steps that hopefully you can implement to make sure that you have no problems with the parents on your team and you and your team can enjoy every single game. Hey team, I'm Coach Art, this is Building Better Baseball, and this is the best place for baseball education. If we've never met, then welcome to the team. If we've already met, then welcome back. Before we get into these 3 steps, I have a free baseball equipment sizing guide that you can get that's linked down in the description. If you're looking to size a bat or a glove or which glove to play at which position, this sizing guide is perfect for you. I made it for you for free. You can grab it down below. Now let's get into the 3 steps of handling unruly parents. The biggest thing I want to say before we get into these steps is, as a coach, you can do most of your controlling of the parents, of unruly parents, before the games and even before the season and during the season. So 2 out of 3 of these tips actually happen before the game, before the parents even have a chance to be out of control. That is the best way that you can control the parents during the game, is implementing all these things before the game. And the number 1 tip is to set your expectations before the season. You want to set your expectations for the parents and how they should behave in your preseason parent meeting before the entire season starts. So your preseason parent meeting, after you have your tryouts and after you have your team, you have a meeting with your parents, right? That is where you set every expectation for your parents and how they should behave at the game, and what is tolerated and what is not tolerated, and to remind them of all the details of how they should behave in the game. So you should tell them what the expectations are and why you have those expectations for the parents, so they have a better understanding of your coaching philosophy and the way that you want your games to go. The biggest why is reminding them that they are not just themselves. They are an extension of you as a coach and the whole organization and team as a whole. So when they behave poorly in the game and they're yelling at the umpires and doing all these things, they are an extension of you as a coach. And they are an extension of your team. They probably have a jersey or a team name on a sweatshirt or something like that, right? So when they're acting out of control, everybody can see what team they're a part of, and everybody who looks at that sweatshirt and sees that team, they look to who? You as the coach, right? So every single parent, they are an extension of you as the coach and the organization and team as a whole. So that is really important to drive home to your parents during your preseason parent meeting, is setting the expectations of how you should behave, what words should be said, how you should cheer for your team and not against the other team, how you should act towards the umpires. Let them know why. It's because they're an extension of everybody else and it's not just themselves. And I think in the moment, a lot of parents forget about that. So it's really important in your preseason parent meeting to go over this. And secondly, they are an example of the players on the team, right? If you have a team of 9-year-olds and you have a couple parents who are just being completely out of control, those kids are looking at the parents' behavior and they're supposed to be role models for the players, right? It's really important because I think a lot of parents forget about that fact. They just get all up in their emotions during the game and they forget the fact that they're role models for the team and their children, right? They are examples of what good behavior should be. And if they're acting out of control, that means that that team, when they see that behavior, they think that it's okay to be out of control because that adult is being out of control. And that is just completely unacceptable in youth sports. The number 2 step is, after you set the expectations in the preseason parent meeting, you want to keep it top of mind throughout the entire season, however you can. The first thing with this is you want to boil all of your expectations down into like a simple quote or a simple phrase that is easy to put places and that people understand what that quote and what that phrase represents. So after all of the details of your expectations in the preseason parent meeting, you want to boil it down to, we respect everybody involved. We respect the umpires. We respect the other team. Something simple like that, right? A little phrase or a little quote that everybody knows what that means and what that represents your coaching philosophy and how the parents should behave in the game, where you can post that quote anywhere that you can. You want to have it like in a signature in your email, right? You want to post it as a sign in the dugout. You want to post it in text messages, in emails, in flyers that go out. You can post it on Game Changer or whatever app that you use to keep score or help people keep track of the game. You want to post it anywhere that you can so it keeps top of mind so the parents are always reminded of how they should behave in the game. So that's the second tip, is keep it top of mind always. And if you realize, these first two tips happen before the game even starts. So the expectations meeting and the notes and the emails and the phrase and the quote posted everywhere. All of those things happen before the game, so nothing should happen in the game. And if it does, the parents already know what the consequences are and will be if they behave poorly during the game. The number 3 step after you set the expectations and after you keep it top of mind is 2 strikes and you're out. So one thing you have to really relay to the parents is during the game as a coach, you don't have time to go into the stands and talk to a parent about their behavior or talk to them about why they're behaving a certain way. You don't have time for that. You're coaching the game, right? So you need a consequence system where the parents know what's going to happen and know what everything means. And I always say 2 strikes and you're out. The first strike normally always comes from the umpire, honestly. The umpire will issue a warning to that parent or to the stands in general, and you as a coach, that can be your first strike. Your first strike can be, if the umpire gives you a warning about your behavior, that's your first strike. And then if a second strike happens, you as the coach, unfortunately, you need to go up to that parent and ask them to leave the stands or watch the game outside of the fence or in their vehicle or anything like that. Tell them to go cool down, and the behavior is not acceptable. Trust me, I know that that is one of the hardest things to do. It's awkward and it doesn't really feel good, right? To tell another adult that they're being out of control. But going back to that first point is you have to think about your team and you have to think about how that parent is representing your organization and you as a coach. And you being in the position of the coach, that is your job if the second strike happens to go up to that parent and ask them to leave the area of the parents or right behind the fence. Ask them to leave the field, to watch in their car, go wherever, take a walk, cool off. And if they're giving you a little backlash for it, remind them about everything from steps 1 and 2. Remind them that they are an example of good behavior for your team, that they are an extension of you as the coach and the organization as a whole. And right now, their behavior that they're doing, especially after the first strike from the umpire, is completely unacceptable, and they need to go cool off somewhere and watch the game at a distance. So like I said before, unfortunately, being coaches, this is something we have to deal with in youth sports and youth baseball especially, is just unruly and out of control parents who just say things that aren't acceptable and their behavior is unacceptable. And as a coach, we need to make sure that our parents are fully aware of the consequences that will happen if they have out of control behavior. And remember, the third step is 2 strikes and you're out. You as a coach, you don't have time to go out and talk to that parent. They know that if the umpire gives them a warning, that's their first strike. And if it happens again, the second strike, they're going to be asked to leave. So hopefully this video and these 3 steps kind of helped you formulate a plan to handle your parents and to really attack this issue head on and before it even happens. The best way to solve this parent issue of out of control parents is prevention. And the way you prevent it is making sure that your parents are fully aware of the consequences for out of control behavior. And before you go, don't forget to grab your free baseball equipment sizing guide linked down below. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I will see you next week for another edition of the Bullpen Bulletin.